if you're trying to break a bad habit or change your behavior patterns, change the direction of your life, whatever that is, I think this video will help you, because in this video I want to talk about why we tend to fall into bad habits, why these bad habits aren't necessarily bad, and how you can start to overcome them. Something that's really helped me overcome them and start living more consciously through life, not living on autopilot. Because I don't know about you, but I find that it's not like we consciously think about, oh, this is going to help me feel better. It's just something that we do. And before you know it, you're engaging in one compulsive behavior, which leads to something else and something else. And then before you know it, time has gone by and you were just kind of like a zombie almost. You were just living compulsively, reactively. And a lot of times we think that we label certain behaviors as bad habits. And we label them as bad habits because they're not behaviors that support the person that we want to be, the direction we want to go, or the goals that we have. So therefore they're bad habits, or they're unhealthy, right? But a lot of times these bad habits are just coping mechanisms. They're just a way that we cope with stress or overwhelming emotions or a dysregulated nervous system without even realizing it. It's just a way that we try to solve a problem. And we are solving the problem temporarily by engaging with whatever the habit might be, because it's probably soothing anxiety, hard emotions, stress, whatever that is, for a temporary period, a short period of time. It's the implications of engaging in this behavior regularly that we don't like, that are holding us back in some way or keeping us stuck. So to first recognize that this bad habit is just a way that we are trying to solve a problem, and then identifying what problem we're trying to solve, what we're trying to cope from or soothe ourselves from, and approaching it from that angle has really helped me in my life. Because you get to the cause of the behavior. Every behavior has a reason behind it. And if you can find what that reason is, you can be more effective in choosing your behaviors, reducing or eliminating certain behaviors, and ultimately shifting the direction that you go in life and who you become. So if bad habits are a way that we are coping or soothing ourselves, I think it's important to find a better way to cope or soothe, a way that can be done without, the use of anything external. And I've talked about this a lot in my other videos. It's not easy, but it's just breathing, being able to sit with whatever hard emotion, whatever stress you're dealing with, without needing to react. Because the more that we react, the more we fuel patterns of reactivity within ourselves, the more this vice or this behavior becomes a crutch for us, and we need it to feel better. We need it to soothe ourselves. Because what happens if a person doesn't have a crutch that they have become dependent on? They fall over. They can't move. And the same thing is true with us. We feel like when we become so dependent on certain things, without it, we feel completely stuck. We feel lost. That anxiety increases. And that's not such a bad thing to start off with, to move into that discomfort, because that is actually the way out of dependency, of compulsively engaging in these bad habits, is through the discomfort. A lot of times we want to find the really easy way, the hack, the, whatever it is to, make this shift easy. We don't want to experience that discomfort. But the discomfort is actually the path forward. It's the path to ultimately, the direction you want to go or who you want to be. And so being able to regulate yourself, regulate your nervous system, is probably one of the most, if not the most important tool that you can be able to do, the most important skill you can do, because I've said it in other videos, you're the only constant in your life. From the moment you are born till the moment you die, you will be the only constant in your life. And so since we are the only constant, having a sense of mastery over ourselves, over our mind, body, through nervous system regulation is crucial to living a more conscious, fulfilling, peaceful life, and whatever that looks like for you. So being able to regulate through breath, through just sitting with the difficult emotion, is going to be a powerful practice in breaking the bad habit. And, I know it sounds kind of silly. It sounds very simple. It is extremely simple. It's, I don't have any hacks for you, unfortunately. Just things that will actually work. So regulating your nervous system, understanding what the stress, what the hard emotion that is compelling you to compulsively soothe yourself or cope with that which is going on within, will help you make a different choice, will help you understand yourself on a deeper level. And instead of engaging in this compulsion, you can see clearly the path of reactivity that you've lived by, that autopilot way of being, if you will. Seeing that, I'm stressed out about X, Y, or Z, and then the automatic response is whatever behavior. It could be scrolling, it could be binge eating, it could be drinking, it could be anything, you name it. Whatever the bad habit, whatever that is for you, the way that you're trying to soothe yourself. So understanding that is the first step, you're getting to the root of what that behavior is. Otherwise, it's like you're picking dandelions. What happens if you just pick a dandelion? It grows back. You could pick an entire field of dandelions and it would be a temporary fix. They would just grow back. If you want to get rid of them, you have to get to the root of the problem. And that's what this is. It's getting to the root through expanding awareness of yourself, what's compelling you to act, and being able to regulate yourself, being able to sit with yourself through breath, through being in nature, through meditation, through self-care. And another thing that has really helped me in terms of overcoming bad habits and expanding this awareness is understanding what your triggers are. So there's this analogy I really like. I call it the pebble that causes the landslide. And if you imagine a landslide for a second, think about, on the side of a mountain, you have rocks and debris and, boulders that are just causing all kinds of destruction, taking everything out in its path. It's completely out of control. And a lot of times, these bad habits, these behaviors, this compulsive way of living can feel like that. It can feel like you just don't have any control over yourself. It's just one reaction after another. And certain period of time goes by and you come back to yourself and you're like, man, like what just happened? Like it could be an event, it could be an afternoon, it could be weeks that go by, but you come back to yourself and you realize that you've just been living reactively. Could be years, And for a lot of us, like I said at the beginning, it becomes a way of life. The more reactive we are, the more we compulsively try to soothe ourselves with external habits, behaviors, stimulation, whatever that is, the more we rely on those things, the more of a pattern and a way of life it becomes. And that is the landslide, essentially. It just, we feel like we're not in control of ourselves. We don't have that mastery. And so to come back to that mastery is to understand what pebble caused that landslide. Because again, go back to that analogy. Imagine like a small pebble falls and it knocks over a slightly bigger pebble and a slightly bigger rock, and then a boulder, and then a few other boulders, and then before you know it, it's the landslide. The same thing is true with us. A lot of times we have these triggers in life, these pebbles that cause us to engage in one behavior, which pushes us to engage in another behavior and another one. And then before you know it, a certain period of time has gone by and we weren't even conscious. We were just living reactively, compulsively, with no sense of mastery, no sense of awareness about ourselves. And it's very destructive to ourselves and to the direction we take our lives, and sometimes to the people around us. The path to taking control is first understanding, what we're trying to cope from, what we're trying to soothe ourselves from, and going deep within and finding that and bringing that out and allowing that to pass through and working on that. It's inner work. But then also understanding what pebbles there are. Think about it this way. Imagine a person comes home from a stressful day of work or just a long day. They're tired and they come home and the first thing they do is, I just need to sit on the couch. So they sit on the couch and I'm just going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to scroll. So they start scrolling their phone. Half an hour goes by. Oh, I'm going to turn on some Netflix. Turn on Netflix. They're scrolling. 2 hours goes by. 3 hours goes by. It's now getting late. They haven't had anything to eat. Oh, I should probably eat something. So but they don't have time to make anything. So they're going to go grab, a bag of chips or something like that. Continue on. Now it's, past what would be a reasonable time for them to go to bed. They fall asleep, get a poor night's sleep because they just spent the last 4 hours scrolling and watching TV, exposing themselves to all that blue light right before bed, getting unhealthy food. They get a poor sleep, they wake up the next day, they go to work exhausted, and then the cycle repeats. And that is the landslide. The pebble in that case was coming home and choosing to sit on the couch. Now, I'm not saying that, sitting on the couch is a bad thing. Maybe for that person, making a different choice wouldn't necessarily lead to that cascade of events which causes this compulsive cycle of living, this autopilot way of living, and then wondering why we feel so stuck. It's a way of life. And I found that coming to understand what pebbles are in our life, what triggers are there. It could be certain environments, it could be certain emotions, thoughts, things in our environment that cause us to engage in certain behaviors, which causes that landslide, that bad habit that we're trying to break. Another thing that has really helped me is, something I call the switch. If you've ever seen Indiana Jones, I think it's like the Temple of Doom or something, he is switching, he's grabbing this ancient artifact that has a lot of value in this temple, and he has to quickly switch that thing that he's taking with something of equal weight. We can do the same thing with ourselves in life. Understand what behaviors you don't want to engage in anymore and switch those behaviors out for something different. Instead of scrolling, go for a walk. Instead of watching TV, stretch and foam roll, whatever it is for you. Pick behaviors that are aligned with the direction you want to go. And it's not easy. When we've gone through a certain period of time, living our lives a certain way, engaging in certain habits and behaviors, just making this switch is not an easy thing to do. You have to overcome a lot of momentum that has led you to that point. But making these switches, these changes of behavior by identifying what you don't want and maybe switching it out for something that will lead you to a healthier way of life, or, the person you want to be, or whatever that is for you, is something valuable. So those are things that have helped me overcome bad habits, and it's not easy. There, a lot of times it's a work in progress. It's not like you just do it once and all of a sudden it's gone. It's the process is not linear. It's very up and down. But understanding, that bad habits are just ways that we are trying to cope with something. We're trying to solve a problem. Understanding what that problem is that we're trying to solve, what emotion, what internal struggle we're trying to cope with or soothe ourselves from. And then expanding our capacity to be with those things through regulating the nervous system. By regulating the nervous system, you expand your capacity to sit with hard things, to manage yourself, to move beyond them without them controlling us. So that's kind of the first step in overcoming bad habits, is understanding the root cause. You get to the root of that dandelion. And then understanding what triggers are. What are your pebbles in life? What things are, when you see them, they just cause an association, and then it's just like you just engage in one behavior and after another. When you can see what those pebbles are, what those triggers are in your life, you can start to remove them, and you can start to move beyond them. You can start to stack the odds in your favor for not engaging in those bad habits, those compulsive actions or reactions. And then making a switch, just choosing to do something different. And I say just as if it's easy. It's not easy. These are all very simple things. Doesn't always mean it's easy. In fact, if it was easy, then everyone would do it, and I wouldn't even make this video. So I hope this helps you in your life. Again, these are things that have helped me and continue to help me. And I'll see you in the next video.